Have you ever watched someone's eyes change mid-conversation and felt the warmth suddenly disappear? You notice it before words explain it, like a door quietly closing behind their face. A second earlier, everything seemed normal, maybe even warm, then something subtle turns distant. Their smile stays, their voice sounds fine, but their eyes stop meeting you halfway. You have probably felt this before in dating, friendship, work, or family conversations. Nothing dramatic happens, yet something inside you immediately says something just shifted here. Most people dismiss that feeling as overthinking, awkwardness, or your brain inventing tension. But that reaction usually starts because your mind detected mismatch before your thoughts caught up. The strange part is rarely the words people choose in that moment. It is the delay, the flattening, the tiny retreat hiding behind otherwise acceptable behavior. Your brain notices when expression and intention stop lining up at the same speed. That is why one cold glance can feel louder than a full reassuring sentence. You are not reading minds when this happens, but you are reading inconsistency. And inconsistency is one of the fastest things the human mind treats as meaningful. So when their eyes lost warmth, you probably sensed emotion leaking out of control. Not because every strange look means danger, but because emotional conflict leaves traces somewhere. Eyes often show it first because they react faster than polished social behavior. People can control tone for a few seconds longer than they control attention. They can hold a smile slightly longer than they hold genuine openness. And they can say kind things while their eyes quietly move elsewhere. That does not always mean deceit, cruelty, or hidden hatred toward you. Sometimes it means discomfort, inner conflict, resentment, attraction, guilt, fear, or sudden self-protection. What unsettles you is not the coldness alone, but the speed of transition. Warm to distant feels powerful because your mind compares two versions of them instantly. The shift becomes more noticeable when nothing obvious happened to justify it. You know that strange moment where the conversation still sounds normal on paper, but the emotional temperature has already changed and nobody is naming it. That gap between spoken calm and visible withdrawal creates psychological friction. And friction is what makes ordinary moments feel strangely unforgettable afterward. You replay them because your mind is trying to resolve a contradiction. If they were fine, why did their eyes harden for just 1 second? If they were interested, why did their gaze drift right after your compliment? If they agreed, why did their face settle while their eyes pulled back? These small conflicts matter because your nervous system tracks sincerity through timing, not speeches. It is constantly asking whether emotion, expression, and intention are arriving together or separately. When those three things separate, you feel distance before you understand the reason. That is why some people feel safe within seconds, even before proving anything. And other people feel wrong even while saying every socially correct thing. The mind is less impressed by polished words than consistent signals. A warm answer with cold eyes does not automatically expose someone's secret motives, but it does suggest that part of them is not fully aligned. Maybe they are suppressing irritation while trying to remain polite. Maybe they want connection, but fear what closeness might reveal. Maybe they like what you said, but hate how much it affected them. Maybe your comment touched insecurity they were not prepared to show. Maybe the subject activated a memory they did not want entering the room. This is why emotionally loaded moments often look small from the outside. The deepest reaction is often the quietest one, not the loudest. A person can raise no voice, make no accusation, and still go cold. And you can sense something shift without having enough evidence to explain it. That uncertainty makes people doubt themselves even when their perception was accurate. They say maybe I imagined it because the evidence felt too small. But small does not mean meaningless when the pattern keeps repeating. One eye movement proves almost nothing, but clusters tell a richer story. You want to notice timing, especially what happens immediately after certain words land. Because the real signal often appears before the person's social mask catches up. Imagine you share something vulnerable, and they answer with perfect sympathy. Their words sound supportive, yet they break eye contact too quickly afterward. Most people assume that means nothing, or just ordinary social discomfort. But it may mean your honesty triggered discomfort, they did not want revealing itself. Maybe they feel responsible, maybe they feel trapped, maybe they feel unexpectedly exposed. The point is not to accuse them, but to notice the mismatch. Warm language plus visual retreat often signals internal movement, not random behavior. Now think about the smile that never quite reaches the eyes anymore. You have seen this in someone who still acts friendly, still says everything is fine. But when you mention a person, a plan, or a memory, something drains. Their mouth keeps performing friendliness while their eyes go strangely unfocused. People usually assume tiredness, distraction, or a passing mood with no meaning. And yes, sometimes it really is tiredness and nothing more. But sometimes distant eyes during a smile reveal emotional withdrawal already underway. The person may be staying socially present while privately backing away from involvement. That can happen in fading relationships, unresolved resentment, or growing disappointment no one names. The eyes go distant because attention has shifted from connection to internal management. They are not fully with you anymore, even if politeness remains. That matters because many endings begin emotionally before they become verbal. By the time people finally admit disconnection, their eyes have often shown it earlier. Another version is even stranger because it looks intense instead of cold. Someone holds eye contact a little too long after a simple comment. Not a romantic gaze, not normal attention, just a beat too still. You notice it before words explain it because the pause feels loaded. Most people brush that off as confidence, flirting, or just a weird habit. But overheld eye contact can signal calculation, challenge, hurt, or emotional bracing. Sometimes the person is searching your face for threat, approval, or weakness. Sometimes they are suppressing a reaction and freezing instead of responding naturally. Stillness can be just as revealing as avoidance when the timing feels wrong. A delayed response often means emotion arrived before language was ready. That is why a compliment can create a strange silence instead of gratitude. The person may not dislike the compliment at all. They may simply be negotiating shame, suspicion, longing, or disbelief in real time. Your mind picks this up because the face pauses while the eyes work. There is another clue people often miss because it looks almost too small. Watch what happens when a specific topic appears and the eyes subtly shift. Maybe it is a name, a plan, money, commitment, or one uncomfortable memory. The person still sounds calm, maybe even relaxed, yet their gaze changes direction faster. People usually assume random distraction because the movement lasts barely a second. But sudden eye shifts around certain topics can reveal emotional hotspots. Not guilt in some dramatic movie sense, but internal pressure around meaning. The mind moves attention when something feels charged, risky, or personally costly. That movement matters more when it repeats around the same subject. Patterns like that tell you where the person is managing themselves. And self-management usually appears when open reaction feels unsafe, inconvenient, or revealing. Here is why all this matters outside rare dramatic conversations. These subtle reactions shape trust long before people openly discuss trust. They affect attraction because warmth in the eyes often signals real availability. They affect conflict because emotional mismatch creates tension even during polite exchanges. They affect friendships because repeated cold shifts slowly teach you what feels unsafe. They affect work because people decide credibility through micro-reactions as much as competence. You may have noticed this after pitching an idea that got verbal support. Everyone said yes, yet one person's eyes flattened for half a second. Later, that same person became the quiet resistance you could already sense. Your brain remembers these moments because prediction and protection are social survival tools. We are constantly learning who stays emotionally present and who quietly exits first. That does not mean you should become suspicious of every awkward pause. Some people are anxious, tired, overwhelmed, shy, neurodivergent, or simply bad at eye contact. One isolated signal proves almost nothing without context, timing, and repetition. A single glance can mislead you if you rip it from the moment. What matters is the cluster, not the fragment. Does the same coldness appear after the same topics repeatedly? Does the smile keep arriving before the eyes instead of with them? Does the warmth disappear exactly when vulnerability, commitment, or accountability enters the conversation? Repeated mismatch matters more than one nervous movement ever will. That is where perception becomes useful instead of paranoid. The goal is not decoding people with certainty. The goal is noticing when words and visible response stop traveling together. Because that gap often reveals tension the speaker is still trying to organize. And once you notice it, conversations make more sense. You stop obsessing over perfect wording and start noticing emotional timing. You understand why certain moments linger even when nothing obvious was said. You realize your discomfort was not random, dramatic, or irrational. It was your mind detecting a break between expression and underlying state. Sometimes that break means pain, sometimes fear, sometimes fading interest, sometimes hidden resentment. But whatever the reason, the eyes often register the conflict before language stabilizes. So when their eyes lost warmth, pay attention without rushing into certainty. Notice the delay, the distance, the sudden stillness, and the mismatch around specific moments. Then ask whether it was isolated or part of a repeating emotional pattern. That is how you become more perceptive without becoming paranoid. You start seeing tension where words try to smooth it over. And you stop ignoring the quiet reactions that change everything. If you have ever noticed a strange shift you could not explain, Novi Mind is for you. Share the most unsettling eye reaction you have seen and subscribe if you notice what others miss. And next time, we are uncovering why some people smile right before they emotionally disappear